Hello, this is Steph Courdin from the ALS Never Surrender Foundation, and we're here to walk you through the Involve Engage app for wellness tracking and progression research. We'll start off by tapping on the Als Involve app in the upper right-hand corner. The app is using Apple Touch ID for security to log in, so I'm going to enter my thumbprint. The first thing that a patient would be prompted for is to actually join the study. So you can see there's information about the study, about the application, and then at the bottom of the screen, I can tap Join Study. Now we're going to walk through the informed consent or e-consent process. I'd enter my first name, my last name, and an email address. Next, I will be presented with a series of questions. I will read through the data and information that's presented, and then answer a question at the bottom to ensure that I understand what I'm being asked to do. So the first question is, what is de-identification of data? And in this case, my data will be de-identified. The next is general information about who potentially my data would be shared with. So my data is going to be shared globally, and I also have the option to share it privately with my care team and physician. The third question is, how long will the study last? And my data is always going to be part of the study. Even should I choose to leave the study, all data up to that point will be included. The fourth question is really about patient benefit. And it's going to help the patient and empower them in their ALS journey, as well as help their clinical teams better support them, and help researchers globally as well. The fifth question, are there any risks? And in this case, it's a series of simple activities and data entry of vitals and surveys. In the last case, I'm going to use a phone similar and apps that I might already be familiar with from a fitness perspective. I'm going to tap the box, just sign my consent, and then tap Yes, I consent. Assuming that I've answered the consent questions correctly, I'm now able to go into the app and start participating. If I had answered any of the questions incorrectly, I'd have to go back and go through the 6 questions again and ensure that I answer them correctly. Now it's time to start using the app. I'm going to enter my patient profile. Profile information such as first name, last name, date of birth, place of birth. That information is actually used to generate a GUID, or a Global Unique Identifier, that's also used as part of the NEALS Global Research Repository. I'm going to enter my ALS profile. Yes, I have ALS. When was ALS first mentioned? And in my case, that was in May of 2013. When was I considered probable with ALS? That was actually in August of 2013. And when was I confirmed having ALS? And that was actually January of 2014. And I don't have any family history. Just swipe across, tell what type of onset I had, and in my case it was arm onset. Any genetic markers? Currently I haven't done any genetic testing. This list could actually be extended. Here you see 3 of the most common genetic identifiers, and obviously this could be extended to a larger list for the patient to scroll through. So I'm going to select none. I'm not a military veteran. I actually started using a wheelchair in June of 2015. I had my feeding tube placed in August of 2017. And I currently don't have a ventilator or a tracheotomy. I can swipe across. And the last thing in the profile screen is I have the ability to share reports. This is where I could come in, generate a report, and send it to part of my care team to help improve my care profile and share information with my doctors and my care providers. Next, I'm going to tap the main menu. Here is where we can actually get into all of the different functional areas of the application. The first area that we're going to look at is the stopwatch, which are the activities. The first activity in the list is range of motion testing. This brings up our ALS iKinetics app, which is used to actually test range of motion. If I go to Tests, Range of Motion, I can see I can perform tests for my arm using a front motion or a side motion, as well as my legs. When I'm done performing a test, I just tap in the upper left corner back into Als Involve. Next, we can look at voice and breathing. Here we have 7 questions or sentences that the patient would respond to. So in this case, the first one, I'd recite this sentence: the supermarket chain shut down because of poor management, after I tap on the microphone. So I tap the microphone, allow my microphone access. The supermarket chain shut down because of poor management, and tap Save. And then I would swipe across for each of the additional sentences. I'm going to tap the stopwatch at the bottom. Look at the dexterity activity. Here we would select our right or left hand, and we'd use a finger to actually trace a series of shapes. The tap test is actually broken up into 3 areas. There's an alternating finger tap test, a foot tap test, and a toe tap test. Let's look at the finger tap test. Next, I would select my right hand or my left hand. I'm going to do right hand. And now using my 2 fingers, I would tap on each of the white squares at the bottom. All of our tests are set to run for about 40 seconds. If I was doing the foot tap test, I would strap the phone to my foot using a simple sports band. If I was doing the toe tap test, I would actually just place the phone on the floor and tap on the space. Almost complete here. And we perform 64 taps. Tap OK. Next, I would do my left hand, and in this case, I'm just going to tap Finished. The ALS FRS survey is the standard 12-question survey that everybody's familiar with. And I could also go in and log each time that I use my Cough Assist device. If I look at logging Cough Assist, I can use the arrows to go back and forth and look at previous logs, or just hit the plus sign and log a new use. Next, I'm going to hit the heartbeat at the bottom, and that's going to let me look at my vitals. Again, I can use the arrow to scroll across and look at prior vital entries, or I can hit the plus sign to log new vitals. Enter a weight change, height, and it calculates my BMI. I could then enter blood pressure information and pulse ox information. If I was using the application within a clinical setting, I would then select the clinic that I was actually participating with, and we allow you to then have the clinician enter their clinical passcode. These passcodes are provided to each clinic to provide a method to validate data to ensure accuracy. In this case, it's data that's being entered by the clinician at the clinic. Likewise, if I was participating in a trial, I would select a trial from the drop-down list and enter my trial passcode. And again, this is used for us to validate data. I could then swipe across, enter my respiratory information. If I was doing this at home, I could use a home spirometer, and we could track forced vital capacity, forced expiratory volume, and duration of tests. The other tests are typically only done in a clinical setting. Swipe across again. We have the ability to turn on other sensory and reflex tracking. And swipe one more time, and you can see we also can generate reports. I'm going to tap the BMI report, and if I turn my phone sideways, we can see the report that was generated with the new data that we've entered today. If I tap the mail icon in the upper right, this will actually generate a report that I could then send privately to my doctor or some of my care team. And if I tap the house, it brings me back to the home screen. Back in the home screen, we'll look at a couple of other functional areas. If I tap the 3 pills, that'll allow me to actually enter supplements that I want to track. If I swipe across, I can also enter specific nutrition data. Or I could also enter medications. Finally, the stethoscope. This allows me to look at all possible trials or specific trials that I may match up to. And I could scroll through a list of all of the trials that are available on the NEAL system. Actually on clinicaltrials.gov too. If I go back there, additionally, we can look at active trials and we can look at my past trials. So that's the simple, intuitive interface that we've created with a series of activities to track progression. The last icon on the screen here is the survey icon. Here we have the ALS survey, which we already mentioned, but we can also have custom surveys added into the application specific to your clinical trial. Thanks again.